Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell testified on Capitol Hill today about the state of the U.S. economy. This was his second day in a row taking questions from lawmakers. Now, in the face of pressure from President Trump to lower interest rates, Powell laid out his view of where the economy stands today.
Despite elevated uncertainty, the economy is in a solid position. The unemployment rate remains low, and the labor market is at or near maximum employment. Inflation has come down a great deal, but has been running somewhat above our 2% longer-run objective, and we are attentive to the risks to both sides of our dual mandate.
Joining us now is CBS News senior business and technology correspondent Jo Ling Kent. Jo Ling, thanks for joining us. What were your biggest takeaways from that testimony today? It seemed pretty rosy.
Yeah, look, Jerome Powell, the chair of the Federal Reserve, did not change his tune, so all of that was consistent. What really was interesting to watch is how lawmakers reacted to him, the types of questions that they asked, and of course the reaction from President Trump when he was in Europe, basically saying that he has 3 or 4 candidates in mind to replace Chair Powell when his chair term is up next year, and basically, trying to undermine his Chair Powell's intelligence and his capabilities. But basically, Chair Powell said that they are trying to keep inflation in check. That's one of the 2 mandates that the Fed has, 2 jobs that it has, of course. And the idea here is that tariffs could cause a one-time price spike, which would drive up inflation. But Fed Chair Powell says, look, we want to be able to keep inflation in check, and that's why we continue to hold rates. But we do know from the Fed outlook that we do expect to see a couple of rate cuts by the end of the year. The real question is, what is the future data going to be looking like? We get consumer sentiment at the end of this week, another jobs report after that, and of course, personal spending and all kinds of other data that will inform what the Fed ultimately will decide at the end of July.
And speaking of which, there's also some data coming in right now about new home sales. What are we learning, and what does it say about the economy?
Yeah, look, this was not good news. New home sales, according to census data, plummeted month to month. And so we saw a decrease of about 14% for new single-family homes. And that's actually down 6% compared to a year ago. And essentially what you need to know about this is if it feels expensive to buy a home and not a lot of people are moving, you're right, because interest rates for mortgages continue to hug around, 7%, hover right up around 7%. So that's preventing a lot of people from moving. In fact, when you look at inventory numbers, they're extremely high compared to the amount of deals that are closing. Earlier this week, we got existing home sales. Those also fell. So this kind of data certainly will play in to what the Fed will do at the end of July, and certainly informs some of the decision-making and analysis that may come from the White House, Nancy.
All right, Jo Ling, thank you very much. Good to see you.
Good to see you.